Okay, so good morning, everyone. I see we're 29 in this webinar. My name is Matthew Philipport. I work at NRB as a delivery executive around product management, architecture, and infrastructure pre-sales. Today, I'll speak about the challenging world of the cloud and its opportunities. So at the agenda, I will very quickly go over NRB. Then we'll tackle the opportunities, the challenges, how we address those challenges in general. And then the most important part of the session is I will present you some case studies that we've implemented in the past few months. So if we look at NRB, NRB is a group of multiple companies and is structured in 4 different pillars. The first pillar is what we could call core IT, where we address traditional vertical sectors such as public and social, energies and utilities, industry, finance and insurance, and international organizations. Under this pillar, you have NRB as a company as such, Pro Data Systems, which is a new acquisition we did last year, and Trigone Informatique, a French-based group that we also acquired last year. Our second pillar is healthcare, and in healthcare, we host Zorgi, Expertise Group, and Sophos that develop very specific applications for the healthcare sector. Third pillar is our local authorities, where we deliver smart solutions to all communes and cities, or most communes and cities in Belgium, with Sivadis for the Walloon region and Brussels, Sevi, Logins, Sigis, with a strong presence in Flanders. And finally, we have our mid-sized sector where we have Computerland that is focusing on small and medium businesses. We've encountered quite a big growth in 2020, going from 351 million euros turnover to over 500 million euros. This is a forecast. We're still finalizing the auditing of the figures, and moving from 2,600 collaborators to 3,200 collaborators. And NRB has a focus that is complete. We're a one-stop shop. We provide consulting and coaching, digital transformation, managed staffing, mainframe and distributed infrastructure, both on-premise and in cloud, softwares, software development, and security and operations. Okay, if we look at the opportunities of the cloud, well, basically it started with the digital era. And what we see is things are accelerating. When we look at the industrial era, well, it took 62 years to have 50 million people owning an automobile. It took 2 years for Twitter to have 50 million euros. And at the same time, cost has decreased dramatically. If we look at 3D printers, just a few years ago, a basic 3D printer would cost 40,000 euros. Today, you can have the same type of capacity for 100 euros. So we're having really an increase in the speed of development of new technologies and a decrease in cost. And this creates, of course, opportunities for service providers and for companies and businesses. And the possibilities are plethoric. There's thousands of out-of-the-shelf cloud services that you can use on Google, Amazon, AWS, IBM Cloud, and plenty of other community clouds, such as NRB's Nextcloud. At the same time, we see an explosion in containers. About 70% of organizations will adopt containers by 2023. Containers were developed in the cloud-native environment and are really a huge enabler to accelerate cloud adoption and to accelerate digital transformation. There's no discussion about where should you go. Should you go on-premise? Should you go? Should you stay at a service provider? Should you go on the public clouds? 2021 is multi-cloud. 93% of the businesses will deploy workloads in minimum 2 clouds. And already today, more than 60% of those businesses are in more than 2 clouds. So we are in a multi-cloud strategy. And therefore, automation is key to success. Automation will permit you to benefit from all those clouds, to benefit from all those solutions, to keep your infrastructure, your solutions, your business applications under control. So that's this huge amount of opportunities, this huge amount of acceleration, those costs that are decreasing, that are permitting any business to start using AI, start using automation, robotic processing, and so on. But what are the challenges, basically? Well, there's a lot of challenges. There's the connectivity. How do I connect to those challenges? The mobility. How do I move workloads from one cloud to the other? How do I avoid vendor locking? The governance, GDPR, Cloud Act, Patriot Act, ISAE certifications, ISO certifications, all those things become much more complex when you're in a multi-cloud environment because you start having that responsibility. You cannot hand it over to Azure or Amazon. Strategy, you can of course say I'm multi-cloud, but if you don't put some strategy in place, you're really going to go into trouble. Management, how do you make sure that one environment that is patched in one place gets patched at the same rhythm than in another place? Change management, whether it's the change of the company or the change of the people in the company, change management is critical. Cost control, security, these are all multiple challenges. And you have to take care of them or you're not gonna avoid the pitfalls. The chaos of not having any strategy. The halfway issue, most of the companies say, okay, I'm gonna go to the cloud and I'm just gonna do a lift and shift and then I'm on the cloud. Well, you're missing a huge amount of opportunities if you just do that step. That step is part of the travel, but it cannot stop there. The gridlock, when you're starting to have too many environments where you're not focusing on automation, your environment becomes so complex that you cannot manage it, you cannot change it. And then the stall, lots of opportunities, lots of proof of concepts because it's cheap, because it's quick, but at some point, you need to move forward, you need to invest, and you need to do your transformation. And the problem with those public clouds is, okay, you try it on Azure, and then you say, okay, I'm gonna try it on Amazon, and you multiply the parts, but you never go into production. This is a nice comparison I like to do is change management. You have to change as a company, but your people also have to change. They have to understand what is their interest. If you look at the Luddites in the 19th century, well, the workforce was so scared of the industrial era, of all those machines coming in, that they destroyed the factories. They destroyed their own work, their own job. Well, we're seeing that happening in Hong Kong. 65% of the workforce in Hong Kong is scared of being replaced by automation or AI. They don't see the opportunities yet to evolve, to become AI engineers, to become automat programmers. So there is really this change that has to be taken care of, the change of the people outside of the change of the business. So as Darren said, it's not the strongest that survives. It's not the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that is able to adapt to change. The business needs to adapt to change. The people need to adapt to change. So what's our solutions? Well, basically, we build on a strong, proven foundation on governance and processes that we have acquired over the years. We design a solution top down, looking at what the business looks for, building something that brings added value to the business. But we don't forget to build it bottom up, building it bottom up, taking care of the basic foundations, making sure we're doing things securely, securing master accounts, making sure cost is under control, having role-based access, identity, core network and security, then building your IaaS foundations if they're ready, using PaaS operations, PaaS solutions, continuity, availability, and finally, automation to make sure everything works fine. These are basic principles, but some very big companies a few years ago, very promising companies such as CodeSpace. CodeSpace had a platform hosting application codes for big companies. 3M was there, FedEx was there. They were using CodeSpace to secure their codes. Well, CodeSpace was on Amazon. CodeSpace had a great idea, had a great design, but didn't build it correctly, didn't put the securities where they were required. And CodeSpace went bankrupt in 2 weeks when they were hacked, ransomed, refused to pay the ransom because they said, no worries, I have a DRP plan. Well, the DRP plan was also on Amazon and it was destroyed at the same time. So that's why we're a process-governed company. We have built processes, advisory services to make sure we do things correctly, we build the strategy, we make sure we're ready. Then the build services to build things in the correct way, bottom up, taking care of every single location. And finally, management services, because even though you're in a public cloud, you need to do the life cycle of your solution. You need to maintain it, make sure it's operational. And so that is where NRB has an added value for all those clouds, is being able to advise, being able to give a strategy. And we try to build a vision, and this is not something that is static. So we have a vision of where we think we should put certain loads, what would they be, and when would we do that movement? And we try to target saying, okay, some things are better at NRB because we're a service provider, because we have our own infrastructures, because it's easily controllable, because sometimes it's even cheaper to put things at a local service provider. Then we have Amazon, which we find extremely interesting in terms of digital transformation. Because as you see, none of those columns are at zero. It's just the opportunities that are offered that change. Of course, you can do digital transformation with NRB services or Azure services. But then there are some other services interesting on Amazon or on IBM Cloud, such as Dr. Watson. So we try to do this matrix, this vision to make sure we can advise our customers where should they go. But anyway, the most important point is we are in a multi-cloud way of thinking, a multi-cloud way of working, and there is no sense saying, no, don't go on the cloud, stay at NRB. So I'm good, I'm halfway through and I'm at the case study. So I hope I'm not going too fast in those slides, but this is where we really want to discuss, to show how much opportunities the cloud offers and how different each opportunity can look like. The first one is, well, it was in the press, so I guess a lot of you know who I'm talking about, but the first 100% digital insurance was launched in Belgium recently. It was in an industrialization of innovation project, so it was really two companies that decide, okay, we want to innovate, we want to industrialize that innovation, what can we do together, how can we create new value for the business? Objectives was to use basically the GAFAs as business accelerators, creating really new value for the company. Technology basically was Amazon Web Services, 100% on AWS. An approach was really an approach of innovation, what you would find in startups, going through ideation, curation, iterative exploration, then building the solution and going very quickly to a MVP product that you can put on the market. Really an agile way of working, agile and fast. From the time the solution was starting to be built to the moment it was on the market, 9 months of development. It's modern, it's cost effective, it's 100% on the cloud, and it's really digital transformation, which is at the heart of NRB's innovation. So, first case on Amazon. Another case, another customer, e-index. Customer wants to modernize the way he collects the indexes in the utility sector. That's the starting point. Objective is to have the latest mobile tech with real-time feed into the ERP. So he really wants to avoid all those different steps. He wants to have a lean process, skipping the steps where the person collects the index, goes back to the office, plugs in his tablet, pulls out the data, gets that data processed, then injected at some point in the ERP system. Technologies used are basically SAP vertical solutions such as ISU, user interface, mobility, mobile device management solutions. But at the heart of it, it's also the change of relational database and the adoption of S/4HANA. S/4HANA is a great product. We have a huge amount of experience on it, but the problem is a lot of companies don't know what is going to be their size of HANA database. They're going from Oracle, from SQL, from any other old relational databases to S/4HANA, and they don't know where they're going to land. And the problem of S/4HANA is that it's an in-memory database requiring very, very specific hardware. Well, NRB developed a platform called HaaS, HANA as a Service, which is a platform where you do not buy a server anymore or a few servers, you buy database space. So a little bit like an Azure SQL instance. Well, you have a HANA instance and you decide my HANA instance is 250 megs big or 250 gigs big, rather. Well, if you grow over those 250 gigs, you can continue to increase. We are really in a cloud mode where you can add and add and add and go from a 250 gig database to a 2 terabyte database without having to worry about capacity management, about purchasing, and so on. So we are highly flexible, visible, you are in control, no CapEx at all, it's full OpEx, and it can be fully managed by NRB. So you can be in an infrastructure as a service mode or in a platform as a service mode. Another project, containers. Federation contacted us and asked, okay, I want a new platform, a new business platform that permits me to have a foundation for all the companies in my federation. I don't want to have multiple solutions anymore. Okay, and to achieve that, I need to separate front-end and back-end functions and be independent of all technologies. Fine. How do we do that? Well, we decided to completely review the solution, to go to innovative new generation technologies, such as Elasticsearch, such as Kubernetes containers, such as Kafka. And we decided to host all of that on Next, the NRB cloud. And we developed OpenShift in pass mode for Next. So basically, you can have OpenShift at NRB, and you get that OpenShift fully blown at a click of a finger. You go on the Next portal, you say order, and within 5 minutes, you get your OpenShift, well, 5 minutes, let's rather say 20 minutes, you get your OpenShift cluster implemented with a series of options, with the number of workers you decide, and so on. So this started by being development project for NRB, and it became a transformational project related to cloud for NRB, where we created a new service to automate the process, to be more efficient, to have orchestration in place. And this product is now available for other customers. And therefore, Next is not only anymore a platform where you can host virtual machines. No, it's also a platform where you can host containers in a managed OpenShift environment. Another project, Belgium S3, the context was being able to store huge amounts of images on a solution in a cloud mode. And the objective was to reduce those storage costs of those images while maintaining data within Belgium. So maintaining data within Belgium in this very specific case was important. So basically, we thought, how can we do that? Well, there's tons of solutions today, on-premise solutions that provide S3 functionalities. So we decided to adopt that because that means that we have a solution that is already compatible with a lot of different applications. So we developed our S3 cloud solution, and we decided to market it as any cloud provider would do. So it's an S3 pay-as-you-use model, as you would go on Amazon. It has its specificities. It's not a copy-paste. It has specificities in features. It has specificities in connectivity. But basically, we take S3 and we make it now a solution that is not only anymore for hyperscalers. No, it's available from NRB straight away, and it's fully managed, fully secured, synchronized over 2 sites. And as we're in the multi-cloud world, well, you can even tier to Amazon, Azure, IBM Cloud, if you want to reduce your costs even more or deduplicate your data in multiple cloud locations. Another solution, another business case. A customer decides a new sourcing strategy and says, okay, from now on and in the future, I want to go to Azure. Well, first objective of this project was to do a full lift and shift assessment and cost calculation of that specific infrastructure for that specific customer. Customer located at NRB, but it's not in our interest, it's not in the interest of anyone to go against the strategy of a customer. I will rather advise him how to make his strategy a success rather than tell him your strategy is wrong. I don't think that is the good approach. So here, technology is, we went through our NRB advisory and consultancy services. By the way, we have that service marketed on the Azure Marketplace, where we do an assessment of the infrastructure of the customer. An assessment where we focus in first instance on the rehost action. So basically the lift and shift. Lift and shift is usually the first step a company will use to go to the cloud, even if it's part of its environment. Company will usually go first to the cloud through a lift and shift. And then once it has done its lift and shift, it will modernize, transform, replace its environment. Added value is it's quick. It's quick to have a lift and shift assessment done. You have very quickly clear impact on the migration. The assessment has minimal impact on your operations, and you have actionable results. In that case, we demonstrated that basically if they went for a 3-year upfront payment on Azure on most of their production environments, they could gain up to 15% of infrastructure cost reduction. And that NRB would still be able to manage their environment and make sure everything runs smoothly as it does today by providing advanced patching, incident and problem management, backup solutions. And by helping the customer to move to a public cloud, the customer is ready then to start transforming parts of his infrastructure. And basically, we want to support the strategy of our customers. The final business case, and that is perfect, we will have a few minutes for questions and answers, is a company that wants to say, okay, I want a semantic data model, so relationship data model coming from multiple sources, to be consumed by my Power BI users. Objective is to get the data from multiple sources into one single semantic data model solution. Technologies chosen here was full Azure because the customer was already present on Azure, and it seemed that everything was available on Azure to build the solution. So we have a whole lot of ETLs, of REST API calls, of infrastructure, of SQL databases, everything built in a native cloud Azure model to deliver the service expected by the customer. The added value was it's basically self-managed. It's fully based on public cloud functions. So it works as such. We even developed some warnings so the customer knows when the infrastructure should be resized to cope with his additional needs, and we can therefore help him do the life cycle of his solution. So it's a high-level business analyst solution, and we have the capability of really understanding the business of our customers and building high added value solutions purely on public cloud solutions such as this one. And that ends the presentation. I'm sorry, usually it's a presentation that takes about an hour and a half, so you can imagine I had to remove quite a lot of slides, but I was only given 30 minutes, and we just have 2 minutes left for any question and answers if any participant would have some questions.
Okay, can you hear me, Mathieu? You can.
Yes,
okay.
Very.
Okay, I see one question is, first of all, are these real cases and implementations you were talking about?
All the cases that were showed are not proof of concept or theoretical cases. These are things that have been implemented by NRB in the past few months. We're not even talking workshop.
But what about the Cloud Act? So how do you handle
it? The Cloud Act, as I like to say, is not a break. I mean, the Cloud Act is a law. So before you didn't have a law. So before there was only the Patriot Act. The Cloud Act is more recent. And basically, the Patriot Act would give any rights to any security organization because they could always say, yes, it's about lost the word, about the 9/11 disasters and so on.
Yeah.
The Cloud Act is a law that forces companies, forces the American government to go through a judge to access data. So yes, there is a risk. There is a risk that potentially the NSI could ask Microsoft to access your data as a European company. But there are a lot of things that go on. Microsoft has to inform you of that request. You have the ability to go to court and refuse access to that request. And if you consider the United States as a state of law, then I don't see where the problem is. Yes, indeed, they can ask access to your data. That's the first thing. The second thing is there are a lot of measures that you can put in place if you really have critical data. One measure is to say, no, my critical data, I don't put it on the cloud. Another measure is to bring your own encryption keys to secure and encrypt the data you put on the public cloud, restraining the actions of an external or extra-regional organization. And that is why that even though we don't have, even though we have the Cloud Act, even though the Privacy Shield didn't go through, well, Azure and Amazon can be fully GDPR compliant. There are no restrictions in that level.
Okay. In fact, we're just respecting the timing. So if there are other questions, I suggest that people can or approach you through the platform, or come to the virtual booth of NRB to discuss further questions, their own business or use case. So thanks a lot, Mathieu. It was very clear and a very comprehensive presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.